I guess my starting point is that our only purpose in life is to promote well-being of others and ourselves, whether it's by making money or painting or going for a walk. I mean, there is no other purpose. I think we've lost sight of that. I'm normally a disruptor. I like vision. I like change. Joy is thunder, changing things, not stability.
You're listening to Solving for Joy. I'm your host, Dr. Chrissy Ott, a multi-boarded integrative physician and professional certified life and career coach. This podcast is about joy, what it means, how we find it, and the creative ways people are solving for it in their own lives. I'm so glad you're here. Hello, friends, and welcome to today's episode of the Solving for Joy podcast. I am super excited to bring to you Coach Meg Margaret Moore. I get to invite you to somebody who has touched almost every corner of the coaching world, especially healthcare and well-being. Coach Meg started as a biotech executive across 4 countries, but since 2000, she's been dedicating her energy to building coaching communities that change lives. She co-founded Wellcoaches, the Institute of Coaching, and the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching. So if you're a coach, there's a good chance the standards you practice, the textbooks you studied, and the certification you hold exist at least in part because of her vision. Coach Meg has authored books like The Science of Leadership and Organize Your Mind, Organize Your Life, and has published widely in coaching psychology. She's been at the forefront of developing tools like most recently the Wellbeing Coaching Inventory, which we will get into today. And this is helping us measure what really matters in whole person well-being. But beyond that, what matters most, what strikes me most, is how she brings science, leadership, and heart together to shape the future of coaching, building not just organizations, but communities of people who want to help others flourish. Thanks for being here. It is an honor to have you. Can't wait to dive into conversation.
Thank you, Chrissy. That was a lovely intro.
My pleasure. So I like to open with many of our guests as asking a little window into what's bringing you personally joy lately. What is something that's been brightening your days?
Well, I've got big projects, and then I have my one fun project right now, which I had some space to play after the book was launched in July. About a week or two later, I started to think about AI and what I wanted to do with it, and I have been resisting spending all day talking with Claude ever since. I've touched base with AI over the last few years, but I just didn't feel as though there was any depth to it. And then the last little while, it's become a thinking partner. And I'm thinking hard in my quiet moments about what to insert into AI to make it more aligned and more humanistic and more safe, and then how we can all use it for good. And I do think, I mean, I'm following a lot of the AI discussion, and there's a lot of fear that's legitimate, and there's a lot of concern that it's not really going to do very much. I mean, you have both ends of this spectrum. As you'd expect today, we're very polarized. But I see in healthcare, I see in coaching, I see in our field of expanding ourselves, AI is going to be able to help in different ways and important ways. For me to be able to influence the way all of us go forward. So I'm really excited about this moment. I haven't figured it all out by any means. None of us have, but I feel as though there's just a potential for scaling up growth that we have not had, that coaches will be part of. I don't think this is replacing, especially in healthcare. We need humans. So yeah, I wouldn't have, if you'd asked me July 15th, what I'd be excited about on September 23rd, I'm not sure I would have told you this. So I'm enjoying the novelty and the opportunity.
Yeah, the brain loves a new challenge and a new question. And it's funny that AI is not your big project. AI is your like fun little side project right now. That's kind of hilarious to me. That tells me what size pools you are swimming in most of the time. And it's so important to figure out how are we going to harness AI for good and not just
Mhm.
be at the receiving end of it. I have a question that might reveal my ignorance. Is Claude a particular
Yeah,
GPT?
that's Anthropic is the
Uh-huh.
owner of Claude. Yes, Claude is an AI agent. And
Uh-huh.
I've been drawn to it, as has much of the healthcare community, because they, on paper, are more committed to safety and humanity than other big AI models, which are really
Mm-hmm.
chasing down commercialization. I don't think anybody's figured out how to do that, but they're, they have a philosopher on how in-house they are asking important research questions. Its energy is different. They all do different things, the different models.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Claude is more coach-like, I would say, authentically coach-like.
Nice. I will have to discover a little bit more about Claude on my own. That sounds interesting. So, your book was just out in July. Tell us
Yes.
more.
Yes, and that was intense joy. And also, maybe this is a pattern in my life right now. I'm a real focused on setting a vision and making things happen.
Yeah.
And the AI project and this project have been things that have pulled me in a different way. I've been asked to do them, or I've been called to do them. It's not like I said I am going to write a book on the science of leadership. I did not set out to do that. The reason
Mm-hmm.
the book became a book on the science of leadership because our publisher, that is really special to work with, Barrett Kaler, and we're working with the CEO and who founded Barrett Kaler. It's a leadership publishing house mainly. They have a process that before you start writing, you do a survey on a dozen or so book titles. Our choice, my co-author and me, Jeff Hull, because we're coaches, we wanted to title it Self-Transforming Leadership. We had the structure wouldn't have changed. But when the survey got put together, the editor put out as one of the options, the science of leadership. And we looked at it and said, no way, we're not leadership scholars. We've not been reading the leadership literature in the way you'd think you would need to in order to write a book on this. But 67% of the people who completed the survey, which was more than 400 people, chose the science of leadership. And we still said no way. And me in particular, because I was putting together the science narrative. But in the next 2 months, I actually worked round the clock, 15-hour weekends, evenings,
Mm-hmm.
and did literature review, sorted things, put things up on the screen, let the science drive the narrative. And by July, 2 months later, the editor said, you've done it. This is the book on science of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a little more gulping and checking on, and in the end we did a good job covering the ground. So it was a push. But I had written 100 articles that were research translations of the original papers, meta-analysis, systematic reviews in the last few years. So I had spent more time than I'd ever spent doing this. And so this was another leap beyond that, but turned out to be doable, and it turned out to be a gift that we were called. So it was a joy
Mm-hmm.
doing this, to feel like, my gosh, I'm getting to know all these scientists. I mean, I checked out their LinkedIn profiles, where they worked, what their past work was. I really spent time understanding, the top echelon of researchers, the best journals, going at it from various angles and feeling as though we covered the bases. So it was a joy. And part of the other reason that it's a joy is because my stealth project, which is what I'm bringing to AI, is that I've been exploring a structured approach to our multiplicity of mind for 12 years, 13 years, since 2012. And I've got a map of all the main personality models that all line up. There are 9 threads, 9 parts of us that code for everything:
Mm-hmm.
drives, traits, function, intelligence, character, values. And so I'm pretty sure I've got a map. It's impossible to prove it, but the map held up by creating the container for all the research. So I could put things in buckets that worked. And so, at this stage of, 25 years in to coaching and thinking about the structure of the mind and where are we taking people's minds, this book put it all together. And now I want to bring that multiplicity to some layer in AI so that it has more of a
Mm.
wholeness than it does now. And there's lots of
Yeah.
questions about how we do that. And that's what I'm thinking about. So, yeah, so that's where the joy of having thought about this for so long. And then now it's complicated and it's not easy to teach. And I'm hoping that I can use AI as a partner to teach
Mhm.
people how to
Mm.
expand to be more whole. So that's a nutshell. So the book definitely
Mm.
gave me a boost, and then beginning to intersect with AI and think about it. So yeah, God knows where it's
Mm.
going to take me, Chrissy. I have no idea.
I love it. That level of sharing is so yummy to my brain. I'm just like, that is just an exciting journey. In order to make a map, think about how much improvisational travel actually one has to do. So in your
Mm.
journey to, with clients, with working relationships, with leadership and with founding, like how many places you actually have gone in order to make the map that you will now share. I feel like, oh, such a capstone project
Yeah.
in a
Yeah, I
career.
mean, I always had this sense, and people probably thought I was being very braggy and arrogant years ago, but I always thought, I think I'm meant to come up with some kind of unified model. Like I could feel my brain trying to sort things from the early days, because when we started Wellcoaches and I wanted to create the profession of coaching and health and well-being. There was no coaching curriculum that was suitable. Back in 2000, Tony Grant was doing his PhD in coaching psychology, and the British Psychological Society had the beginnings of coaching psychology. And then there were two or three people in the US, Francine Campone, David Drake. Yeah, that's about it. Probably a few more, but there were very few of us. And we
Mm.
didn't even know each other until about 2003, 2004.
Wow.
And then the Institute grew out of that. So I was in the early days as a biologist saying, there's got to be some science behind this. I can't move coaching into healthcare if there isn't there isn't a scientific. So I started going to the positive psychology conferences. I was introduced to Bill Miller of motivational interviewing early on. When someone listened to me coach and said, "You're doing motivational interviewing," I didn't know what it was. Then I met Jim and Janice Prochaska very early on. 2002, probably 2001. So I just went out looking for people and wanted to understand their work, and then assembled a protocol, which took 8 years before we published our first manual. I mean, the Science of Leadership book came together in 3 months. So that just shows you how I've gotten faster. I mean, I'm building on a lot. I wasn't starting from scratch. But back then,
Mhm.
it's really about going and finding. And when we built our advanced training at Wellcoaches about 2008, 2009, those ingredients that we put together into our advanced model turned out to be the basis for what I discovered as multiplicity of mind. So my brain was trying to assemble some kind of whole system from early on, and then it didn't really come together until 2012. And then I published a paper, and then the Organize Your Emotions book, which was probably the least selling book, the lowest selling book of all of mine. The Coaching Psychology Manual is well over 60,000 copies. The Organize Your Mind book is well over 60,000 copies. And that one is probably sitting at like 15 or 20. And it really didn't, and it was my most important work, which is interesting, right? Like the thing that I felt was adding the most. And the journalist said, 9 parts to the mind. That's too many. I can't handle it. I mean, I was just talking to a collaborator, half an hour ago. No, I don't know. That's too much. So it's like my favorite part of piece of work is actually not mainstream. And I don't know, I don't know. Maybe it won't be. But I loved chemistry. It was my favorite subject in college. And, not everybody likes organic chemistry, as you know, from your own history. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved the periodic table. I read many books on it in my chemistry
Goodness.
class. I wanted to understand the structure of it. And I do think the mind reflects the structure of the physics that created life, that created the mind. So I don't think I'm too far away from some kernel of truth that there is a structure there.
Yes.
I mean, biology is all about structure, right? It's beautiful
Yes.
and it's
And
complex,
repeating
but you still
patterns.
come back to the same 9 elements. If you group together the electrolytes into one, there's 9. The
Mm,
phosphorus is DNA, sulfide makes strong bonds, nitrogen makes protein. There is elemental forces here that are lost.
mhm,
They're
mhm,
they form molecules, they form enzymes, they form systems. So you lose the elemental. You can't feel the elemental quality anymore.
mhm.
But boy, does hydrogen feel like autonomy, right? Like the
I love
single.
this parallel.
So
Yes.
that's been my, I wrote a piece in Psychology Today called "Is There a Solar System in the Mind Sky?" And it was pulled down, like too out there. So
It's too poetic. I mean, it's really bringing, just like poetry, it's
why would there
bringing,
not be?
why would there not be? It's bringing the universal out of the particular, you know? It's
Yeah,
finding the particular in the universal and the universal in the
yeah,
particular, which is a poetic approach
yeah,
to everything
yeah.
and true.
What gives me joy is playing there, and that often that's not a lonely place, but I'm alone in it
Mhm.
because it's not what everybody else does. And we've never built a training program around this. So there's a few people who really follow it. I mean, a handful. So yeah, you've gotten me onto my soapbox, but that's where I feel joy. And I spend an hour every morning talking to my 9 parts. I know them
Mm,
well. I know, and they're all expanding. Like I'm really the body regulator, which is the loyalist in Enneagram, the introverted sensor in Jung's types, and then Hartman, it's actually the SS system. So it's the part of us that really understands the system of the body and the system in the world. That part of me has always been a quiet voice, the regulator, the one that wants to sleep and rest and wants stability, safety, security. I think the whole AI game is instant destabilizing,
mm,
and I feel a need to help stabilize it. So if you think about like what's not working right now, we're not stable as a social economic structure. So I feel that AI isn't stable, and so that's what I mean about understanding these parts and what they mean, and then how they fit into today. And I'm
yeah.
normally a disruptor. Like I like vision, I like change. I joy is thunder, changing things, not stability.
Mhm,
But it's
mhm.
funny right now that that part of me, the stabilizer, is feeling the need to step out.
Mm. Joy is thunder. That is a beautiful statement to feel and resonate. And I hear what you're saying. This is a moment for stabilization, even for those of us who tend toward disrupting. When you spend that hour in the morning talking to your 9 parts that are your multiplicity of mind model, I'd love to understand, to what extent is there overlap with the IFS, internal family systems
Oh, well,
parts?
internal family systems teaches you to talk to your insight, just talk to your subconscious. So basically, your conscious is talking to your subconscious, as opposed to hypnosis, when your conscious is not talking and your subconscious is talking. So it's a deeper state than IFS. IFS, your conscious self is in
Mhm,
charge, and then
mhm,
you're letting the voices have to find a space. So you have to learn how to create space, and the voices then talk to you there, and some of them are louder than others, and your ego structure is the louder voices. And so part of the process over time is to create space for the quieter voices and to meet them and get to know them, because most of us have a few dominant voices. So after many years, you now can tune. I mean, I can do I haven't done them for a while, but I can do a coaching session where I can get people draw out each voice, and
mhm,
then people can, it's like a radio frequency, I can get people to
mhm,
find it. I can know how to talk to it. I know how to reach it. And so I can draw that out, and then people, it's a very nice session because people then meet They're parts, and you might have a question on the table, and then when you get to the 9 part, the in Enneagram, the harmony, the integrator, you get the wisdom, you get the answer. The answer's inside, right?
Mhm.
You get your own integrative wisdom and answer. So that's how I do it. I land on the integrative as the last voice. And usually what I'm doing is I'm using the agitation of the moment, whatever's bothering me physically. And usually there's some sort of work related challenge, but it's not always. It's whatever is maybe comes from a dream. And I work with that and I try to resolve it so that I start my day with equanimity. So that's my main purpose, is to settle the unsettled. And the parts are, they all help. They each have different perspectives on it. So my conscious mind is talking to the subconscious, basically. So that's a real skill, it's something that I've taught myself, and I can do my own therapy. I don't very much anymore because I've done so much of it. I don't need a lot more, but I can clear things.
Mhm.
And that just gives me hope, because it means that, some traumas are too big. You need a partner, you need a therapist to do it with you.
Mhm.
But it does mean that everything's amenable to integration, to go from particle to wave, from stuck to unresolved to resolve. That natural integrative process, which
Yeah.
produces a little dose of joy, the insight, when
Yeah.
neural networks connect in new ways, and you get this,
Uh-huh.
that's been mapped with EEGs, the brain frequencies slow down, and the associated regions, behind the left ear, the creative nonlinear regions light up. So there is a problem that we're, trying to integrate the unresolved each day, so that then I start the day clean
Mm.
for a
Yeah,
while
it's
anyway.
a very specific look at healing, and I love the intricacy. Love the intricacy of that.
It's not even, I mean, healing is one way if it's based on some older wounds, but sometimes you're just annoyed in the moment at something
Yeah.
that has no roots. It's just,
Yes.
I mean, if you're growing, I mean, the interesting thing about joy is that it's opposite. It's lack of joy. And so in a way, you're turning the lack of, thing that's depleting your joy into joy, or the unpeaceful to the peaceful, or whatever it is. So no, and knowing that that's always available as a natural process in the brain, I think gives us all a lot of hope. Because I really want to help my clients realize they don't have to stay stuck in the irritation and the agitation, that there's a way, natural way, a quick way.
Yeah. One of the things that you have also done this past year is develop the well-being coaching inventory, which is a validated tool to measure pre and post coaching
Mhm.
interventions, which is a huge underpinning for the efficacy of this profession, which certainly can be maligned or mm, underestimated, I would say, in lay public,
Yeah.
largely because of less than professional experiences that people may have um, with individuals practicing coaching. But I would love to, explore all of your, thoughts and why the big why underneath it for you,
Yeah.
and how you hope to help people adapt it and access this tool.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to jump to the book, the Science of Leadership book, because the 9 capacities in there are also the 9 sources of well being. They're also the main ways that we coach, the main approaches to coaching. So it's one unified model. That's the first thing to say. Um, I guess my starting point is that our only purpose in life is to promote well-being of others and ourselves. That, whether it's by making money or painting or, going for a walk. I mean, there is no other purpose. I think we've lost sight of that. And I think that the secret to the future in capitalism is not to take away, the system needs prosperity and economic stability. So we can't all of a sudden stop polluting and stop, putting plastics in everywhere, and all of the things that, that are working against well-being. But we do need a system now that does that, brings prosperity and well-being together rather than consuming well-being to grow prosperity.
Yeah.
That's the equation we need to shift to. And in healthcare, we need to bring well-being because that's what people want. Their health is simply the master is your vision of your who you want and what well-being means for you, which is everything. Positive psychology has it's a pretty long list. You can stuff in there whatever you want, whatever has scientific roots. And so
Yeah.
well-being is it. And I'm grateful that I didn't start a leadership coaching school because I wanted to, and I felt like I was missing out because leadership is really important to me. Um, and being a leader is really important. But my path took me down the well-being track. And in the end, I'm coming into leadership later with walking the well-being walk and mapping leadership to well-being. So I think well-being is purpose. I mean, it's the meaning, it's the purpose, it's the, why do we have children? Why do we have friends? Why do we work? We're trying to develop lives that are worth living, which means that it's well-being, whatever that looks for you. So it is the whole thing. Okay, so now in healthcare, we have to measure numbers. Gallup's work in studying global well-being has been passed on to the Harvard Baylor Global Flourishing movement and study. The new definition separates health as being something that's quantitative, measurable. So that's blood pressure and weight and maybe you can throw in some pain scores and some subjective stuff, but it's the measurable stuff. And well-being is the subjective. So I think that's a nice way of thinking about it for those of us in healthcare. And then the well-being is the master. That's what everybody wants. Then health and behavior, lifestyle behaviors, the way you live is serving the master, which is well-being. And what we want is to help people come up with a way of setting a vision for their well-being such that leadership is focused on getting there and our health is focused. So then you have one system, everything's serving well-being, healthcare, and leadership. So I want to start there. So then if we want to measure coaches' impact on well-being, and the other thing to say is that when we built the coaching protocol at Wellcoaches, though anybody that's read the coaching psychology manual and been trained at Wellcoaches will know that it is a model that delivers well-being just by virtue of the process. Appreciative inquiry is focusing on strengths and making people appreciate the good. Self-determination theory is serving the three core needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So you don't even need to mention well-being. And if you use the Wellcoaches protocol, you are generating well-being. That's always been, it's just naturally going to do that. It doesn't, you don't have to call it out. You don't need to assess it. So now that well-being is so fundamental, how do you use it in coaching? So there's dozens of assessments of well-being, but they're all meant to measure well-being on a population level. They're not measuring the things that people can change, that they can improve, because there's many things they can't. So we set out to take all of the well-being assessments that are well known. There are about 30 that we looked at, and we pulled out from there a set of items, so assessment questions like I am calm or I'm focused most of the day on what's important, or things like that, statements like that. I have positive loving relationships in my life, just like really straightforward. Like I had a funkier, more eccentric one that was more fun, but that wasn't going to stand up to scientific
What was one
validation.
of the funner questions that
Oh my
got
goodness,
dropped?
I'm not weighed down by my weight.
Mm,
My
playful.
just more playful, yeah.
Yeah.
But those questions are harder to standardize and measure, and they mean different things to different people. So it's pretty plain vanilla. So we took them all and then we distilled it down to 49 items. We dropped 2 of them because they didn't hold up. Belonging and safety
Mm,
didn't actually predict anything. I don't, I can't
interesting.
say why, but those 2 things got dropped, and they're fundamental
Yeah.
to life. And maybe it's because the audience that we're doing the assessments are dealing with those issues. If we'd been in a different population that hasn't got good social resources, maybe it would have been different. But you know,
Mm,
we are, I guess, in many ways speaking to a community of adults that are more stable already. And
mhm,
that coaching is more focused on folks that are already stable, because if they're
mhm.
not stable mentally, physically, emotionally, then they're not going to grow. That's one of Maslow's big contributions, is that you have the base of the boat is the safety and stability and security and belonging,
Sure.
esteem, and then the growth comes on the sail after those things are there. And if we're coaching folks who are lacking those things, then we do need to stabilize, and we do need to help them find those resources. Those situations definitely enter into coaching, but mostly we're focused on people who are stable and helping them grow, right? That's where coaching sits. Otherwise, that's the dividing line between therapy and, or one of the dividing lines between therapy and coaching. So basically a set of straightforward questions, and then we sent it out to 50 very experienced coaches, both leadership and health and well-being coaches, and they commented on the individual items, what was confusing, what they liked, what we were missing, and that allowed us to really clean them up so that they were, we were looking at one thing at a time. That's the hard thing about assessments. If you want to say calm, focused, and stable, that's three
Yeah.
three assessments, not one. So you
Right.
have to really keep it simple. And then you validate against other assessments and against each other, so that you come up with 20 items that predict well-being. But one of the ongoing conversations we have with the scientists, we really still want the 47, because the coaching conversation needs more jumping off points than 20. 20 might be
Mhm,
okay to assess a group, but it's not going to help you in coaching. So we ended up with a
mhm,
really nice, basic, straightforward well-being coaching assessment. And our first application is actually in the school to measure before and after training, because the
mhm.
hypothesis is that people's well-being goes up just by, we've witnessed that over and over again. It cures burnout in
Absolutely.
physicians, it nurses, the
Mm,
just going through our first 30 hours, 4 days, in and of itself is a well-being intervention. So that's where we're starting. In healthcare, we don't yet, so far, the assessments of well-being are all focused on the negative, PHQ-9, depression and anxiety, and social resources, as opposed to the positive. So it might make its way into healthcare eventually, but there's a real opportunity for people in the workplace to use it, and to as a way of measuring. So yeah, so it's out there now. You know, as we work on coaching services in Medicare for seniors, we have to take the work section out and leave the mind, body, life. So
mhm,
it will get validated without the work part in the course of getting used, and then it may turn into a healthcare assessment.
mm,
Maybe. I mean, work, as you know, is huge for
mhm.
well-being, and it's a driver of engagement in lifestyle medicine and health, big driver.
Absolutely.
So
To
probably, in my lifetime, it'll make its way into the into the EMR. So it's anyway, it comes from a deep place. It's very practical. It's resting on a lot of different assessments, and it's just a really easy way to work with people to help them. Now, can you move the whole 47 items in a coaching program? Probably not. People are going to pick two or three.
yeah, you pick what's necessary right now. Yeah.
Helping people spot where their strengths are and where they want to improve. So they're not going to go
Yes.
from a score of 50 to 80. They're
Mhm.
going to inch up in certain areas. So in that sense, you have to then localize to the things they're working on and improve those scores.
Sure.
Right. So
Sure.
you have to be thoughtful about how you use it. But
For any well-being professionals, well-being interested professionals, and of course for coaches who listen, where would you direct them to utilize this for their
right.
clients?
So the paper is open access.
Hmm.
at the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine. So, we can, if you want to post it
We'll
on your
put the link
website,
in.
that's fine. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's readily available. So, and then we have a live link to complete it, and you get an email summary of your report at wellcoachesnetwork.com. If you just scroll down, you can just jump right in, put your email address in, and use it. So it's right there. It's very easy to experience directly and then get your own score sheet.
Yeah, I love that. I've done my own. I plan to bring it to the Physician Coaching Summit
Yeah.
in November and introduce it to the physician coaches gathered there who haven't um, made use of it yet. But I think that it's um, just an incredibly useful tool, and the fact that you guys have done all the work to validate it just makes it so reliable.
Yeah. And we're not selling it. I mean, we're basically giving it away. It's meant for the field because it's for the great, it's something straightforward. It should be widely used. It
Yeah,
doesn't, there's nothing quirky about it. There's nothing brandy about it. It's just really what works.
yeah,
What are the main things you do with your mind? What are the main things you do with your body? And, what are the main elements of your life that all together create a formula for more joy, more thriving, more peace of mind, all of whatever it is that that's your compass for
yeah.
for for something better.
A lot of your work trajectory has been about bringing coaches together in different communities for
Yeah.
different purposes. I'd love to hear your thoughts about, what's different for coaches when they're in conversation with one another versus in isolation and in conversation with only their clients. What do we get from the peer relationships?
Let me just walk you through the three scenarios because the communities are different. So the Well Coaches community is more like a family because it's not a cult in any way because our protocol is also very straightforward and solid and strong. And there are some not proprietary, there are some things that we've got that are our own creation because we're creative beings. But our strengths are a deep compassion and warmth, real generative creativity, getting people unstuck. Those are our and those are actually the main strengths of coaching. You have this deep acceptance. I mean, we really do accept people. We
Mm,
don't judge. I mean, and well coaches, when you meet a well coaches coach, you can feel the compassion and you can feel the spark and the science behind that. And so because we draw people who are naturally drawn to that, recognize the science. And so it's a group. I'd like to think that it comes from me in the sense as the founder, that warm, intelligent creativity is deep.
mhm.
And so I think we have a community of thousands of coaches. I just spoke to one that we did. She was trained in 2006, and now we're talking about collaborating. These are long
Mm.
term relationships. We don't forget the people that we met 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I've still got a video, a 2.5 hour workshop I did 20 years ago that you can watch. You can
Wow.
see me 20 years younger.
Oh.
You can see the you can see the lightness of spirit. That you can see the difference in my maturity level compared to now. But that's a real alignment of people that people feel close to the Well Coaches community, maybe even more than their employers because of that heart combination of heart, intelligence, and creativity in the science. So
Love that.
that is one community that is very special to me and everybody in it. And then the next was the Institute of Coaching, and there, it's broader because we're bringing coaching science to leadership, life, and health and well-being coaching. And there's a the leadership coaching world, executive coaching world has been around longer. It's bigger, it's more mature, it makes more money.
Sure.
So
Hmm.
it's that's the dominant group there. It's probably
Hmm.
20% health and well-being and 70-80% leader, maybe 25 is sort of, so it's a different group. And there it's bringing a love of science to that whole community, and it's a joy to share. I mean, you probably remember my opening at the conference. It's a joy to share the bits and pieces of science that make people feel like, okay, I'm standing on firm ground. Like this is not just I'm not just making it up. What the
Yeah.
science doesn't, the science gives you a hundredfold more inquiry paths. Because
Mhm.
once you understand, it doesn't take away from your creativity. It multiplies it by orders of magnitude, because when you know all these models and you know all these ways you can ask questions, you just have a much bigger repertoire, which means your intuition is drawing on a much bigger data set. And we just created finally a real professional fellowship, which will grow. And there will be probably an academic one, because it's less than 100 coaching scholars, probably. It's not a big group compared to
Mhm.
like go to the oncology conferences, there's 50,000, so
Right.
so
Mhm.
it's small, and the number of coaches that are interested in science is probably fit 20%. It's not, but that 20% creates a very robust community that's dedicated to understanding how research creates stability and growth and maturity and integrity in coaching. So that group is aligned around the intellect side. And I mean, there's the warmth too, but it's a group of people who are, and they're not siloed. You know, the leader for years at the conference, people would say, leadership. Why am I sitting next to a coach in health and wellness? And health and wellness people are saying, and eventually they realized, we're all coaches, and we can come together. Yeah, we have our specialties, but look at this room, the energy there. We're all
Yeah.
drawn and interested in people. We want to help. We lean in. We listen hard. We really, and so you feel this thread across all coaching, and then the science supporting it. So that's that community. The national board is a whole different animal, because they're all of us around 2010, which was 10 years in for me. There was a dozen of us at that point that were trainers. So we were the leaders. We were the field's founders, Linda Bark, Michael Orlowski, Meg Jordan came along later. Ruth Wolliver was one of the first researchers. Linda Smith created the Duke program. I mean, there was, who am I missing? I'm sure Karen Lawson. Karen was the first academic program. So we all knew each other. And what we had to do, which took 5-6 years, was to set down our competitive, you know, self-determining selves, because we all had our own way of doing it. There was integrative, and there was academic, and there was psychologists, and there was me, who's none of those things. And we all had to set down and agree online on a shared set of competencies. And we were able to move away from there being a health coach, which typically would be a nurse or clinician, from a wellness coach, which was in the corporate setting, from an integrative health coach to a functional medicine coach to whatever,
Mhm.
lifestyle health coach. All those labels were there, and we got everybody. I did as much as anybody to get us all to agree that coaching is coaching is coaching, and those are just specialties. Those are just bodies of expertise that you can build around, because there is an education component in healthcare coaching,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people don't know everything. They don't know everything in any domain of coaching, but the literature shows coaches in health and well-being spend 20% doing some form of tutorials and education in an autonomy supporting way. We're not, pouring it all over you and saying, here's your recipe. We're asking, what do you know, and what do you not know, and what do you need to know, and
Mm.
what would be helpful, and how do you learn, and what, it's a very, we're really still putting people in the driver's seat. So that group, and so that was a very different accomplishment. We talk every once in a while of the original founders. That group was very special. And that collaboration across, was baked into the standards. It really was. Those standards were a collective accomplishment. Our handprints all are on it. And, Ruth and I were the ones that really drove the competency set, the original set, and then the first exams. All of us were involved, and some others worked on the standards. We really, and we had like $5,000 in the bank when we partnered with the National Board of Medical Examiners, who
Yeah.
ended up investing and lending us almost $3 million. So we got
Oh my
that. Was
gosh.
one of my major accomplishments, was negotiating that deal and getting that up and running. So that was a totally different thing, which was to create this. because we knew we needed a national credential to get CPT codes and to get where we are now, close to reimbursement. And we drove, that was years. And then I have my coaching leadership work, which is a different group of coaches, smaller. That's a much smaller group. So they're all very different. And from a leadership perspective, you know, being instrumental in all of those has made me into a different kind of leader than if I had only done one of those. Very different, because I've had to, at Mass General Brigham, it's a whole different world to be a leader within that than it is with the National Board of Medical Examiners, and then Wellcoaches is its own ship, right?
Yes.
We're not answering calling to an academic or nonprofit group. So they're all very different. And I'm glad you asked about it, because part of my legacy is, I had a vision and I drove the startup. I was very much either in the first, second, or third seat in each of those in terms of getting them off the ground for years and years. And they were all very different ways of using my talents and learning and growing. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't. But I did set out. Those were all necessary ventures to get where we are right now in the field. And I feel very proud. It was good work and it was worth doing.
It is so worth doing. I mean, I'm just having this moment to envision the ripples and repercussions of how those now formed institutions have and do and will continue to
Yeah.
impact people who impact people who
They have
impact
lives
people
of their own, all
out
of them.
into
Yeah.
infinity, out into infinity.
I
So
hope
just like
so. I mean, yeah,
what a
yeah.
sacred thing to ground and recognize, and yes, to name it legacy with a capital L, and to call back to like the very beginning of the conversation when you said, there was always something in me that was telling me I was meant to create a unified theory. I was meant for something big is really kind of the underlying message I hear from that, and not shrinking away from it because of cultural messaging, but really stepping
Or giving
to
up,
that.
or yeah, yeah. I
Giving
mean,
up or being impatient.
yeah. No, I mean, I have. That's why I think I'm at I love where I'm at right now, because I'm still very much committed to getting coaches on high ground.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. Anybody
Yeah.
that knows the space, especially in healthcare, we're not there yet. And that's still part of that's the work's not done. But what I mean, the deal I did, you talk about joy, the deal I did was to do everything I could to carry the torch for that
Yeah.
cause and continue in order to play
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And
Say we are serious people doing serious work.
yeah, and I still think I might have more to contribute with this future work. I don't know. I don't think it's less than. I don't feel
Mm-mm.
as though it's less than. I think I had to do all that to do the next thing. So, the thing about service, the way, and this is the message of Taoism. You give because you can, because then you get what you want. It's the deal you make, whether it's a religious contract that you have or wherever it comes from. That's how life works. You serve to get served, and you
Yeah.
serve without knowing how you're going to get served. You just do it because you're supposed to. It is a calling.
Mhm.
It's not an easy path.
Right.
I have to
It's
say
just
it's not an
acknowledging
easy
like
path.
what's mine to do here.
Yeah, but the deal you do is that you do what you can, because you can and it's needed, and then you get whatever that shape it takes. If you live long enough, you get the pleasure, the joy of doing what you want
Mhm.
for your, whether it's retirement. It's not retirement for me, but for some people it's retirement. Some people
Yeah.
it's other things. But I do think your best years come from having rested on that accomplishment and then using it for something even bigger or better or
Yes.
whatever it is. It felt very personal at that point.
My my initial coach training was with Martha Beck Institute and the Wayfinder Life Coach training, which I enjoyed. And Martha always starts people off with the 4 stages of change. The fourth stage, fourth square, being basically, enjoying the fruit of your labors. And I am notoriously unskilled at resting at any point in the fourth stage to enjoy the fruits of my labors. So it is nice to see there is reflecting on enjoying the fruits of labor and that not being opposed to lots of onward momentum at the same time.
Yeah, I remember Bill Gates once saying, and he's not my favorite leader by any means, but if you're doing something important, there is no balance. There just isn't. Because anything that's worth doing is hard work, and it's not a 40-hour week.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't. You can't change the world on 40 hours a week. I can say that. And I didn't have children. I did want to have children, and I was pregnant. But it's clear that if I had, I would not have done what I've done. And I think in the scheme of things, I probably done more than I could have if that's how it feels to me. But that wasn't really my choice, because I would have happily had kids if it had worked out. But I do think, for women in particular, it's pretty darn hard to do something really significant to change the world and raise a family. There are a few that do it. It's a very small number.
Yeah.
A very small number, but it is demanding. And I think if you're cut out for it, for the long uphill climb, it's incredibly satisfying. Not everybody is, but I don't think you can do big things with one hand. That's my
envision.
advice to
I mean, it's definitely something to resonate with and to kind of
so
feel
don't beat yourself
into.
up if you don't have enough time for reflection and pleasure. It's okay. It will come.
What a wonderful conversation. Meg, thank you for all of the work that you've done, that you continue to do, to build the legacy of coaching, to build its scientific legitimacy and ground it in compassion and warmth. And what is joyful to you? What is meaning, alignment, and delight for you? I am beyond grateful to have this time with you.
Well, thank you, Chrissy. It's great. You took me as deep as I will go. So thank you for that. The thing when you're serving others is that you spend a lot of time serving others, and you allowed me to be in a place of serving myself today, which I don't do unless I can, and it's not going to get in the way. Right. So I appreciate the space.
That touches my heart. One of my underlying tenets, my own encapsulated personal mission, is may I be of joyful service. That is the guiding principle.
Yeah, and to draw it out. Yeah.
And to draw it out in others.
You stand there, so then you invite people to say, what does bring me joy? Hard work it feels good.
Yeah.
Not every minute. No, but a lot.
Yes.
Producing good work feels good.
To more good works for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Coach Meg.
Thank you, Chrissy.
A heartfelt thank you to Coach Meg Margaret Moore for being with us today and for reminding us that leadership, coaching, and wholeness are not separate paths. They're the same road, walked with intention. Her pioneering work has shaped the very foundation of health and wellness coaching, and this conversation gave us a rare window into the heart and science behind that legacy. Next week, I'm joined by someone whose path could not be more unexpected or inspiring, Dr. Sherry Rosenthal, former podiatrist who left medicine to study for 8 years with the Four Agreements author, Don Miguel Ruiz. Sherry now teaches heart-centered entrepreneurs how to design transformational retreats that are both impactful and financially sustainable. If you've ever felt the pull to pivot or wondered how to turn a whisper from your soul into a thriving business, you are not going to want to miss this one. And speaking of transformation, the Physician Coaching Summit is coming up so soon, November 6th to 8th at Savannah Wellness Resort and Spa in Carefree, Arizona. Full Moon Yoga Nidra is going to kick us off right the evening of November 5th. And this is your invitation to pause with us, reconnect, and invest in your own healing alongside some of the most brilliant, soulful physician coaches in the world. We are less than 40 days out, and our room block with incredible discounts is shrinking. The event is CME accredited, so yes, go use that CME if you have not utilized it and it's the end of the year. As always, a gentle reminder, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. Nothing you heard today should be considered medical advice. Please consult with your own trusted providers. Deep gratitude, as always, to our producer, Kelsey Vaughn, and my partner and supporter in all things, Sue. May we stop resisting what wants to bloom and trust that the next right step will find us when we're ready. I'll see you next time, friends.